I can't grow facial hair. I'm half Asian. I look like this all the time. This is me on my good day. You should see me on my bad. Actually, it doesn't change. I'm good or bad. Doesn't matter. Okay, well, let's begin episode 9 of Recall Japan. So, as always, I'm Kevin, and in the middle of the screen we have Josh. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. I just got off work. It's 90 plus degrees, or like somewhere between like 35 and 40 degrees for anybody in Japan, and I have no AC, so it's going great.
Okay. It's pretty bad in Japan too, but well, today our special guest is the Thresh Queen herself. We have Maria. How are you doing, Maria?
I'm good. It's woke up early today. 100 degrees here in Vegas, but not as humid, so not as bad.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Do you have AC though? That's the big question.
Nope, not my room.
You don't have AC
Rest of the house has
in
AC.
Las Vegas?
Not me.
Oh my god. That's
We're like no AC team because I don't have an AC either. So we can all be no AC. We'll be the no AC team. If
all
we
of
ever.
us live in places that need AC. It's crazy to me that none of us have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's alright.
And my
today-
apartment didn't come with it, so.
Yeah. Today, welcome to everybody who's come out. We got a couple of things to talk about. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the LJL, we got the semifinals just happened. Crest Gaming versus V3 Esports. We'll talk more about that later on. We'll talk a little bit more about predictions for the finals. DFM versus V3. You know, big spoilers if anybody hasn't watched the series yet. But yeah, that's mostly it. And then, you know, if you have questions for either of us and or Maria, then pop in the chat and we'll get to it towards the end of the show. Yeah. Unfortunately, it is going to be in English. Tadahito.
Yeah, we'll do this in English. I mean, I've talked about it in Japanese. Like, right after the semifinals, I was actually, like, upset
Pissed.
of the, like, quality. Like, I've never been, like, upset about, like, a best of 5, but I was really, like, disappointed at the level of the games. Because I was really expecting, like, you know, like, top-notch games, but it was subpar. So I had to do a VOD review soon after, because I knew I wouldn't do it after. But I was like, you know, I'll do it later. I'll just keep postponing and I'll never do it. Because I don't want to think about those games, especially game 4 and 5. I thought those were, like, the worst. But, does someone go first, or should I start the
You don't think Mundo just
pitchforks?
running over everything in game 2 wasn't a interesting gameplay going on?
Where do we
Oh,
even
man.
start? Do we start with the draft? Do we want to go over the draft real quick?
Well, I know you guys wanted to talk about how poorly you thought Achamomo performed as kind of a player for Crest Gaming, then also a little bit in the series. So I know both of you got 2 support mains already in the group. So let's go ahead and start there, because I
Okay.
want to hear this too.
Okay. You want to go first, Maria, or should I go first? Should I start the
I
flame?
guess you can start it off. and
Okay.
then-
Can you, like, turn up your mic? Is there a way you can do that?
I can move it closer to my
Okay,
mouth.
that's perfect. That actually helps a lot. Okay.
There you go.
Well, so first of all, like, I never thought highly of Achamomo. I know you did, Josh. I know you said that he was very good, but I've only seen him on Lux and Yumi being really good. So that's where I realized, okay, there's something wrong. Why can't he play other champions? Or why does he refuse to play other champions? And I know that Lux and Yumi was OP at the time, so it made sense, you know. Just pick those 2 champions until they get nerfed. And that's what he did. And they won. They were very successful with that. But when they fell out of meta, what I didn't understand is why Achamomo still was on the starting lineup. Like, I don't mean to, like, say he's bad and he doesn't deserve to be on the starting lineup, but there's a support that's on the bench that can play Tom Kench, Braum, like these tank players, and his name is Grendel. So, why is Achamomo there? Why can Achamomo, like, his Braum is pretty bad. Like, I guess his Karma is okay, but it's like, it's Karma. And
I
then,
thought his karma was good.
I know, but it's like,
Was-
it's Karma though.
Okay.
Hey, we're gonna
It's in the
fight?
same- No. It's in the same vein as Enchanter's supports, and I thought he
Yeah.
was very good on Enchanters.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it was weird seeing him play, Braum fully.
yeah, like, it's that, like, you know, when you pick champions like Thresh or Braum, you can, like, have a really high skill ceiling. I feel like Karma, it's really hard to, like, mess up on Karma, or like Janna or Lulu or Nami, things like that, because they're very, like, utility. They play very safe. They're not like flash engaging, and if they mess up the engage, like you would do it like on a Nautilus or Thresh. Like for example, if you land a hook on Nautilus and it's a bad hook, then you could lose
We'll
the
talk more
team
about
fight.
that later.
Yeah, well, I mean that game he did well on, so I don't know how much I can say, but like things like that. Like so when I see Karma and it does well, I don't usually say like, oh, that was a really good Karma player. I mostly say like, oh, the Karma did his job and that helped everyone else do their job. Like when I play Janna, I don't think that I'm hard carrying the team. I just think, okay, well, I'm helping everyone else hard carry. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like Karma type players, I guess. But I mean the biggest thing the biggest problem with Achamomo is the fact that he cannot play Rakan. And I think that is a huge problem with Achamomo that you cannot just overlook.
It came into play a lot in the series in pick ban and kind of set them up for failure at a lot of because you could see that they were very afraid of giving V3's bot lane Utamiyashi and Vivid Zyra Khan. And that was you could see that in draft almost every game there. But I would say that as a player, he's very good on the Enchanter support, so I'm surprised we didn't see more of them. His Karma game was good. But he had some problems with the Braum game and the Volibear game. His Alice game was good, but we could talk about that later. So I was just surprised that we didn't see more of the safe picks if they're already like, you can take away, if you don't want to give him Zyra Khan, you take away one of them in bans and then give Achamomo his comfort champions. So
yeah. I mean Zion on her own isn't a bad pick, so I don't mind them picking away Zaya.
Yeah, they're both good on their own.
But I mean, together you can't have them together. That's the problem. And when if they first pick Rakan, or if they first pick Zaya, and you cannot play Rakan, like you have a huge problem there.
Yeah.
So like drafts are an issue, but it's like how much of that is the coach's fault and how much of that is the player's fault. I feel like that's where people make a lot of like mistakes and like the blame department, like saying it's 100% the coach's fault for like picks and bans. I don't think that's true. Like I feel like in any team the players are contributing to picks and bans, and the fact that Achamomo is unable or the team is unwilling to put Achamomo on Rakan, whether that's Achamomo's fault or the team's fault, it's still like pick ban's fault. Like the pick ban is a problem.
It was still a major issue in the series. So.
Yeah.
Was there anything over the course of the games that like you wanted to point to as besides obviously his small champion pool? Is there any like play that he made or play that he failed to make that was like, man, why is Grendel not playing?
You can look to some of the Braum games.
Yeah.
There are some points where he would just die randomly, and it kind of came out of nowhere. It's kind of like, the Olaf gank. Remember which game was it? Was it game 1? Yeah, it was game 1. And Olaf gank, we know that Olaf's going bot side. He walks to the tribush toward it, and he ends up blowing his summoners that were dying. I don't recall.
You get a double kill from that.
Yeah, it was the double kill, which really set up game 1 for V3.
Yeah.
But that I'm not sure if that's a mechanical Braum mistake or just but
like
individual mistake. But
like a mistake like that, I feel like is so basic. So I vividly remember this play because I was like mind blown that this was actually happening. So Pantheon ults top and gets a kill on Paz. And I was like, oh, that was pretty good. Then Olaf sees that, so he's like, okay, I'm going to go take Dragon. They take Dragon, so they know Olaf is bot side. So for some reason, like because Pantheon's top with Renekton, Karthus goes mid to take up all that mid farm. Perfect scenario. This is like really good, for a Crest Gaming. And for some reason, Art has Ezreal, doesn't clear the wave with Ezreal ult. Achamomo tries to face check a brush that they should know Olaf is bot side. There's no reason to check that brush. Like if they tower dive you, they tower dive you. At least you're underneath tower, you can do something, but they're away from tower, they're out of position, they get caught out just so they can get a ward and tri brush so they can see Olaf in there so he can get a double kill, and that just sets up the volley. And they were able, like, it was actually amazing that Olaf, like, was it? Oh, Rakan and Zaya were able to take out bot tower in less than a minute. So they lost first tower gold. Bot lane died for no reason, and now the whole team is behind. And they're against Zaya Rakan. So yeah, good job. You gave. I don't know if Yutomachi got both of those kills, but like they got both of those players died, Art and Achamomo, and that's like something that you should know. There shouldn't be like a you can't blame communication because everyone could see the fact that Olaf took Dragon. You can't blame like I don't know like I don't know what you could blame besides the fact that they just weren't thinking and they decided to do something that is really illogical. Like I don't see any scenario where face checking that brush would be beneficial.
If he did it earlier, maybe he could get vision. But
Sure, maybe
the wave was
earlier,
still
but
pushing into the tower. It was a big wave, very susceptible to dive with Hachamacha being mid, covering the mid after the Pantheon gank. I mean, it's very risky play, and I don't think you want to take lots of risks, especially in semifinals.
yeah. I don't know if it was a big wave, but the fact that Art didn't clear the like it's not just Achamomo. Like Achamomo messed up with that, like that started everything, but the fact that Art wasn't thinking enough to focus on wave clearing. Like I forget what game it was, but I think it was Korea, but like they realized oh they're coming bot, so Ezreal spams everything to clear the wave using E, his ult, and like just to get rid of the minion wave. And there was no wave so they couldn't tower dive cleanly. And then they had to back off. So the fact that Art didn't do that is kind of like suspect to me. So I don't know. Like, you know, Aatrox was dead. I'm pretty sure Mordecai was mid because he was trying to push wave into tower, and Olaf was bot side. And that's just one example. Like, obviously, if you watch just Achamomo playing, which I didn't specifically do in my VOD review, but if you just watch his Braum game, you can see the fact that he messes up shields. He's not using his ult correctly. Like there was a time when they were in the mid lane diving or like pushing, and Rakan got a nice clean flank from the side, and Braum did an ulti to like counter engage, and they just got destroyed. So like when you play Braum, you have to know when to be offensive, when to be defensive, and when to use your shield and what to use your shield for. The fact that he's trying to block like Olaf's auto attacks with his shield, which it just like blows my mind. Like, why would you ever do that? It's very
Doesn't it give you
simple.
movement speed, and like you can
shield?
destroy the axe.
Yeah,
So-
you could stop the axe.
You can stop his Q, but I mean his E is true damage.
Yeah,
True.
the
And you can't
autos,
block that.
You'd rather block the rest of the team than the flanking Olaf.
Yeah.
So.
and
Yeah.
I'd rather block the Zaya auto attacks than Olaf auto attacks. You can't block or an Olaf Q. So, like, looking back at it, I looked at it again just to see like how was I like fair in criticizing Achamomo, and I believe I was. I mean, obviously, I'm very biased because it's my opinion, but I don't think his his Braum was very good.
Fair. One of the
That's
big things
me.
I wanted to talk about was how messy all of these early games were. And, you know, I'm going to use early game here to talk a little bit about things that happened in the draft. So first thing, Pantheon pick.
First picking
okay.
Karthus.
Yeah.
First picking Karthus
Yeah.
as well.
I gave Ku, right? I gave Ku like my coach's split award because I thought that what they were doing with Grendel and how they adapted to map coming in was pretty impressive on the whole. But there's a lot that Ku, I mean, I can't say it's all him, but like things that tend to be associated with the coach that happened during this series that drove me absolutely nuts. Like Pantheon on 9/16, especially pre hotfix, was a bad champion.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about that. They not only picked it at all, they picked it in the first half of the draft, so it was counter pickable.
Yeah.
Right, I didn't get that at all.
In that draft, they first picked the Karthus, and they're like, we have an AP jungle, now we can double AD top and mid. And the Pantheon is very low damage on that pre-hotfix. He pretty much doesn't exist after 15 minutes, and getting a 20 CS advantage on a Mordekaiser is not going to cut it. He made a really good play on it, but I'm not sure whose idea it was to pick the Pantheon. Could have been Luna's, could have been Kuz, but still the coach letting it go through, I'm not sure is the right option.
Yeah.
Especially game 1.
The other things that surprised me a little bit were putting Nap on Shen twice. Like, we've been seeing Shen kind of get a resurgence fairly recently, partly because he got some Q buffs a while back, so he does a little bit more damage than he was doing previously. But this isn't exactly a strong champion, especially when you look at what it was picked against, when it was both the Aatrox and the Gangplank. And you need to be able to survive the Aatrox lane. Shen doesn't do that very well because Aatrox doesn't auto attack and his W doesn't do a whole lot. Yeah, he can go in, but it's an even lane at best. And then you have this really big split pusher, and then of course Shen doesn't do anything to Gangplank at all. So you end up just having this losing lane. But the other thing I want to talk about is, so one thing that is almost universally applicable to calling out coaches for is early game set plays, right? When you have a thing where it's like the team is obviously set up for this from before the game has even started, and we saw that twice CGA, when they were on the red side, went for the red buff invade at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And both times were kind of a disaster. One of them didn't matter. One of them ended up losing them the game. Like from the very
they
first
did it
couple
3
of
times actually. Once
Yeah,
with
they did.
Mundo.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it with Mundo, where Baby ended up securing the buff. What was the second time?
The second time,
Flash to do that.
I think it was game 3 or 4, where Vivid just walked in
walks in.
and dies. Which game was that? That wasn't game 4. That was game 3 probably.
I think it was game 4 because I was just looking at game 3. But then the last one, I mean,
it was game 4. I think he was Morgana, I believe.
Yeah, then it was definitely game 4. And then in game 5, when V3 is like, wait, they've done this twice already, both times when they've been on red side. They're probably gonna do it again. And then they end up getting, like, I think it's 3 kills off of the very beginning, and pretty much chain win the game off that. So it's interesting to me that they're so reliant on this play, especially when they're going with something like early game Lulu, which isn't going to have a whole lot of lane priority at the very beginning and just doesn't provide a whole lot at level 1. And then they just go for an invade with Gragas, Zaya, Volibear against the Xinjiao, who's going to be able to put out a whole lot of damage very quickly. I just didn't get the fact that they went for the same play 3 times in a row after getting punished for it once before. I don't know. That was just kind of a rant, but
yeah.
I think you guys are going for it.
No, I agree. Did you want to say something?
It was a very relevant rant because at game 5, it was just over instantly after that point. So, if you do have set plays, you gotta make sure that you don't do them 3 times is definitely pushing it, especially when it's not really a super complex play. It's like late invade red and get wards. So like it's very like I know Baby had a very heads up play, something you can only see in like a best of 5. It was very cool. He had the ward there, predicting it, got the teleport in. Very good play from Baby in V3. But yeah, besides that, it was kind of a mistake on Crest's part.
Yeah, that was the one other thing I wanted to call out, is just looking at it, is the fact that they had the ward there as like this hard call. Like, this ward is only good if you're expecting the invade, and they're willing to commit having a 5th person to the fight, and they end up losing so horribly because they expect the play to be coming. But I mean, they went for it anyway. Ended up instantly, as we said, losing them the game. That's not the only game that was a total mess during this series. You guys want to talk a little bit about the Nautilus that we kind of brushed over previously?
Oh yeah, game 4. That was very fun.
4.
Yeah.
It was so basically, Ezreal walks into lane. Nautilus is sitting in a brush. He throws a hook out. It goes through the minion wave, and like it's a really nice hook. Hits Ezreal, and then they just ignite. They just go all in on him at level 1. And then after that, he comes back into lane, and then he gets killed again. and it just like happens over and over and over again. And it's like at that point, it's like, yeah, okay, you have Morgana, why are you dying? Yeah, you have Ezreal, why are you dying? But it's like, it's level 1. Like, you don't take Black Shield as Morgana level 1. You usually take it at earliest level 2, but most of the time you take it level 3 because you either want W for the wave clear or you want like Q for like a engage. So you probably get like W, Q, then E as Morgana. That's like standard, you know, if everything's like normal, that's what you would usually go.
Against Nautilus, I think you would just go QE or WE.
Maybe.
But even then, it's like Nautilus's hook cooldown is a lot shorter than Morgana's Black Shield cooldown, so you would end up maxing E, and you're not a super effective counter until level 5, where you have 3 points in E, and even then you have 3 points in E, so you don't do damage. So it's one of those matchups that you have the Ezreal, so you're double safe. So it shouldn't happen where you chain die in that lane. But I do think Ashramama played that pretty well.
Yeah.
And it was really good heads up play by Art to, flash in on the ignite and go for that kill. That was a really good play by both of them,
Yeah. The one point I do want to give in Yutori Milashi's favor is that both of his deaths happened at level 1. He didn't actually have his
E.
he didn't have his E yet because it's level 1 and you just don't take that. So like the second one is kind of like once it happened, it's like, yeah, he's going to die, but it's definitely a situation where it's like you've already lost so much, you just have to concede a lot of the lane at this point.
Yeah.
But overall, I just thought this series was a total mess that was overly dictated by weird early game plays, and we didn't actually get to see nearly as much as we wanted from either team.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It's like, it's really weird because like Crest Gaming, one of their strengths is the fact that they're really good at mid to late game team fighting, and like if you give like Luna like a Vladimir or like a Nazir or something that's like
Corky.
really, or Corky, that's really good to like
was a really good example of Crest's strengths. They had really good team fighting. It was Luna and Art were battling back that nation's like really good team play with their team fighting, and I thought that was a really like good example of Crest's strengths, and they didn't really play to those in the semifinals, which is disappointing.
Yeah. Like, is there anything that Crest did really well that impressed you throughout the series? I have one that I don't think either of you are going to expect.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Mundo pick.
Why? Why the Mundo pick of all things?
Because one, it's not something that you would expect. I don't think Mundo, I'd have to check, but I don't think Mundo is really getting play anywhere in the world. But Mundo still does what Mundo has always done, and that he demands a team that can consistently kite back and still do damage to him. And it's something that when you look at the composition that had been picked up by V3, they didn't have anything there. So you just look at the composition and just ask, who on this team can kill Mundo? And it's Camille, maybe?
Yeah, true percent, health, whatever. It's very kind of a low damage. They're more bursty, but you can't really burst Mundo with that comp.
Yeah.
I would agree. It was a good pick into that situation. I don't know when they picked the Mundo, but
I believe it was 4th rotation.
Okay.
Sounds about right. I just think like that's one of the things that I think is really cool at the competitive level is just when you're willing to bring out these picks that nobody else would be expecting, just because it punishes a composition that tends to be meta. Like Mundo can't die to anybody on this team, so let's just go ahead and pick it.
He did pop off in the later game team fights. He was unkillable. So.
Yeah, I mean, because he's Mundo, you can't kill him.
Yeah, I mean, Mundo's weakness is the fact that if you have healing reduction, it really messes up his kit. But I don't want to just like compliment the unconventional pick because we just spent like 10 minutes criticizing the Pantheon pick. So it's like you have to like give some leeway.
To be fair, the Pantheon's just a weak pick. Mundo has strengths, and we've known that Mundo has strength since, season 1, basically. Mundo's always been the strong, you can't kill him. What's interesting is that in the jungle especially, Mundo's, I would say his primary weakness is, early game.
Mhm.
He's kind of like, he's prone to get invaded. He's not super strong early. He's not very, extremely tanky early. You kind of need to farm up. He's one of those farming. His ganking pressure is not super strong. So it is one of those scaling jungle picks. And Crest was able to get around that. I think they had a good early game that game. And the Mundo pick ended up working out. If he had gotten abused in the jungle more, maybe he would have been too far behind to really become the unkillable tank, but it didn't pan out that way. Pantheon, on the other hand, I would just say is a pick that you could bully somebody in lane, but you cannot, if you're not super far ahead, like 3+ kills ahead, going into mid game, you're not very useful. Mundo's the opposite of that.
And I think the one other thing I do want to touch on before you respond, Kevin, is this is also the game where Hachamacha went in, flashed, missed the smite, and didn't have any early game pressure because one, he's Mundo, and two, he's behind. He's super behind in his farming. So the fact this is a champion that's once you hit about 20 minutes with this champion, as long as you're not painfully behind, it's almost impossible for V3 to deal with.
Yeah.
That was very unlucky, level 1. But that's why I'm confused why he wasn't punished even harder. But I do think that Crest's lanes made up for that. So
yeah, I agree.
I mean, now that you mention it, it's not like the Mundo was a bad pick, but it just kind of feels a weird pick. Like, why would you pick Mundo over other junglers? Because Mundo was pretty non-existent in the most part of the game, especially because of the level 1 situation. But I mean mid to late game they're able to pull off paths, just hyper carrying his team. But I don't know, I feel a let me check if Jarvan was available. Yeah, they banned Sejuani and Gragas in the second rotation, so he had to pick something that wasn't Sejuani and Gragas. So I would say maybe Jarvan would have been good, but yeah, I don't know. It's just a Mundo pick. It doesn't really do much. It's not like it doesn't really do much. It doesn't take a lot to do what Mundo does. You just pop R, you just run at them and just try to tank as much damage as possible. And yeah, I guess Hachimecha did a good job doing that. It just kind of feels really weird, complementing that. It's not a very high skilled thing, and it was mostly the rest of his team was able to hold off, let Mundo get to that point, and Hachimecha was able to do what Mundo does best, and that's be a meat shield.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they're looking for. They just needed a front line at that point in their composition, and Mundo does that. Jarvan does provide a lot of early ganking, but I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. Hachamacha doesn't gank particularly effectively. Just kind of as a player.
I think he does a good job on Sejuani and Gragas. That's why they're banned. But
yeah,
I feel Hachimecha is best when he can provide pressure onto a lane. When Hachimecha was playing game 1, what was he playing game 1?
Karthus.
Oh yeah, that's Karthus. He was pretty meh, or I don't want to just look at his losses, but when Hachimecha is not on this Gragas pick, I don't feel he's as impactful as he could be. And Hachimecha is really good at hey, Luna, what do you need? I will do that for you. I will help you out. You want to win 2v2? Let's fight. I feel that's what Hachimecha does best. So picking him Karthus or picking him Mundo, I just felt wasn't towards his strength. That's why Gragas and Sejuani are usually banned, or a Skarner. Skarner was banned all 5 games this game because Hachimecha does a really good job flashing and ulting and pulling someone out of position.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, like it wasn't banned in game 1, and they ended up first picking Karthus.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're just like tuning in and you don't know a whole lot about LJL, I think Crest Gaming Act might be the most divisive team to talk about. As you could tell, like we keep going back and forth on what we think about this team. But I mean, they're out now, so
Yeah, that's true.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
we're still back and forth because I don't know. I expected them to show a lot more than they did show in this series, and
I agree.
they had a very good season, but this series was not good, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
So let's transition a little bit as we start looking more towards the finals. Let's look at the semifinals a little bit more and talk about what V3 did
Yeah.
over the course of the
Yeah,
series.
we talked mostly about Crest Gaming, so I guess it's time to
Yeah.
talk about V3.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what did they do? I feel like they just didn't lose.
Yeah. I remember when me
Yeah.
and KMT watched this game. It was we we weren't super impressed. It wasn't super proactive. It was more like we can be reactive against this Crest game. If they make a mistake, we can capitalize on it, and then we'll just play better late game. And that's kind of how they panned out.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think
yeah.
is impressive is just looking at the diversity of the picks they were actually able to go for. The only player who didn't play at least 4 separate champions over the series was Yutori, who played Zaya, Ezreal, and Caitlyn.
I mean, that's still 3.
Yeah, I mean that's still 3, and you look at people in a lot of other series where they play like 1 or 2 champions, but every single player played a number of different things, and none of them, except for the Shyvana, I suppose, looked actively bad, which is a big set of props going into their series up against DF.
I mean, I thought Silas looked bad. Vivid's Alistair was pretty bad. Like, well, this game, I feel like showcases how good Paz really is as a player. I thought Paz overall did the best. Like, I probably would have given it to Yutori Mashi if it wasn't for Game 4. But because it's like a 5-game series, I have to look at each individual game. Who played the best overall. Like, sure, Baby had some good moments, but then he has Silas. He has Shyvana. Like, Ace did pretty well overall, but like, he was playing like Mordekaiser. He wasn't really doing much as Mordekaiser game 1. But like, I feel like Paz, like every game, I could say, oh, he did well, he did well, he did well, he did well. Like, sure, some games are better than others, but like, and like Vivid had some really good games too, but he also had that one bad game as Alistair. Whereas I don't think Paz played poorly in any of these games. I think Paz did the best he could given what he had. So I would give MVP of the series to Paz. I think Paz is a really good top laner, and I think he does a really good job, like in team fights, or he knows what he's supposed to do. Like when he's like super fed on Camille, he didn't go help his team try to win a 5v5. He was like, okay, you guys do whatever you want. I'm split pushing. I'm going to try to end the game. Oh, someone's coming? Okay, I'll just kill him. And it's like, he just kept going and going. He was like, I can win. I can win. And
in their losses, Paz was one of the reasons that they made it so difficult for Crest to close out. And I thought that was very impressive. Just, I mean, when you're playing reactively, you can just kind of stall and wave clear. And V3 in their losses weren't making super proactive plays, but I think Paz was. He was split pushing. He had some flanks. He had a really good flank on the team fight that lost them the game, but he played that team fight pretty well. He almost one-shot Luna and then got back into his team, and they couldn't deal with the Mundo. But it was still a really good look by Paz. And that game, even in their loss, really highlighted his skill as a player.
yeah, I think Paz is still really good. Like, I feel like this game showcased how good Paz really is. And it's like, like before it was like, I thought Evie was like number 1, and then Paz was like right underneath. But now I feel like it's a little bit closer. After watching this game, I feel like maybe Paz is maybe better than Evie, or maybe they're about the same. Like, I feel like this game...
That's a bold claim.
Yeah, that's very bold.
No. Oh, look, I watched this game, like, sure, he had some bad moments, but like it's really hard to like say, okay, Paz messed up. This is Paz's fault. When you're like, for example, in game 4, when your bot lane's ending, or when your jungler's just like, I don't know what your jungler's doing or your support's doing. It's like he was still like a driving force in that game. Like, for example, like Evie, he could rely on other players. I felt like Paz was on his own a lot, and he was able to like help bring advantages to his team. He was able to help create a pressure that Crest Gaming had to deal with. Like Nap was not able to deal with this pressure on his own. Whereas like I don't feel like Paz was like saying like, oh, save me, baby, save me. He was like, hey, this is an opportunity that we can like win. Here, I'll help you. I'll TP bot. Like game 5, he was like, you know what, level 1, I screwed up my level 1. It doesn't matter, we are going to win this level 1 bot fight. I am TPing bot. I will recall walk back to lane against a Shen. I'll be down like 30 CS. I can't do anything, but don't come and help me. Like, I will do this on my own. You keep smashing art because that was their only win condition. And I feel like sure, maybe I'm giving too much credit to Paz, but I think he did really well this series, just from like an outside perspective. Like I don't know how much is Paz and how much is his team, but I feel like Paz looked really good overall in this series.
I agree. I don't think anybody is going to contest that Paz looked really good this series. The only issue I have is like, oh, based on this one series we saw Paz play, he's now better than Evie, who's been performing
No,
at that level for the entire
this is
season.
like a case, I guess. Like a fun statement you can make, a little fun argument. I don't want to say Evie's the best. Like no one's close enough. You can't argue against that. It's like something you can like maybe entertain.
One of the fun parts about this, though, is when you compare individual players, it's very difficult. But when you compare players, like compared to their teams, you get a better idea of what players are, what they bring to their specific team. Like you said, Paz can be very individual. He doesn't need a lot of support. He'll make plays for the team. Evie, on the other hand, I think makes a lot of higher impact plays, especially with like Gnar. He will single-handedly win a team fight for detonation. They're different players and they have different teams, so it's hard to compare each individual player against each other. But so you can make an argument. Paz has some highlights to his play that maybe Evie, that's not the highlight of Evie's play. So I think it is a good argument to talk about. And it's interesting because Paz did have perhaps the most consistent play for V3 in this series.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, well, the MVP awards is meant for regular season, and where you can't. It's hard to give someone an award that loses to Axis Gaming, so it's kind of like, for that I'll give it to Evie. As just something like interesting I thought might be fun to talk about in the future, I guess, or like a fun discussion. Who's better, Paz or Evie? I don't feel like it's as one-sided. I feel like you could make a case for Paz, like just off the series alone. Like if we throw away regular split, I feel like it kind of helped boost his like reputation a little bit.
That's fair. Well, with that, do you think Paz versus Evie is going to be enough to actually get them an opportunity to win against DFM in finals?
Maybe a game.
Alright. Glad we're at least on the same page.
Well, that's another question. Are we done complimenting V3?
I don't know if there's a whole lot to compliment. Utori looked really good in team fights later on in the game. Ace looked actually surprisingly good against Luna, who has been a very strong laner throughout the entire season. Baby was baby, which means to quote Kevin from earlier, he's very win or int, and sometimes both.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I will stand by. V3 looked very reactive, and Crest made more mistakes, and so V3 was able. And reactive is a good way to be an okay team. It's a quick way to be an okay team, but you cannot be a very reactive, great team. It's very hard to be. You have to be proactive, and I think it's whoever can be more proactive. That's such a buzzword, proactive. But whoever can be more proactive in, a detonation versus V3 series will, look better. I won't say they'll win the series because you still have like individual talent and player skills to look at. But if V3 can be more proactive than they showed in the Crest series, they can take. I would say they can take 2 games if they're more proactive. I don't think they'll win the series, but they'll have more opportunity to shine.
The one thing I can say good about V3, just to like end the topic about V3, the thing I feel like is their strength is the fact that they have good individual players. And if you watch how they win games, it's usually from the early game where they like their players are better than the opponents. Like if you look at, V3 versus like let's just say like, Rascal Jesters, Burning Core, like a team below them in standings, they usually win like early game and from there they just smash and just win to mid to late game. But if you watch them against like Detonation or Crest Gaming, if they don't win early game, then they don't know how to like come back. Like their team fighting isn't as clean compared to like Crest or like Detonation. So that's where they start to like lose out. So I feel like if they do beat Detonation, they have to like somehow smash early game, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think Baby is a good example. If you watch Baby play, he either hard carries and wins them the early game, or just starts inting out of his mind. That's all I have to say about V3.
It's all the energy that Wyvern had last split has now been channeled into a new player.
Wyvern Reborn.
This time it's Baby. So I think it's interesting to look at how these two teams are going to interact, because I definitely agree V3 tends to win a lot of their games early on, whereas DFM really tends to come alive in the mid game. Or around the 10-minute mark historically, where back when they used to play Tom Kench and Galio support all the time, they would always just force fights around Rift Herald. Now they're just more likely to rotate towards the top side of the map, right? Swap their lanes at about 10 minutes and then try and force things over that way. But just individually, I don't think V3 is strong enough to overtake them super quickly. I mean, we've been watching them play, and the only time that V3 has looked super good against DFM was when DFM was playing Ramune back in week 2, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, the most recent time that they matched up against each other was, right before these semifinals. It was no, I'm thinking of Crest.
Yeah,
sorry.
Crest with
I'm thinking of Crest.
I mean, V3 played them in week 10. So, I mean, that's pretty recent.
Okay. I would still say that individually, at least from the detonation that I watched, in the week 10 versus Crest specifically, it was very slow to get rolling, and they had very stall. They're very stall based. They would stall the game and to get to the point where they're team fighting. And that's when you said they come online in the mid game. There wasn't a lot of action early, and that's probably a good sign for V3 coming into the series. If V3 can get that ball rolling early, that is probably the only way that they're going to be able to snowball a win.
Yeah, I think the most interesting comparison point, because Paz and Evie, I mean, whichever one you think is better, they're pretty close. Yutapong Gang versus Yutori plus Vivid. Again, it doesn't matter which one you think is better. I think most people would say they're pretty close in terms of how good they are. Saros, I think, is probably better than Ace, but Ace has definitely been picking it up over the course of the season. I didn't have high expectations of him, and he's been looking pretty solid. But Steel versus Baby is really where I'm looking at as the breaking point for the entire series. Because if you look at how Baby actually plays, I sent this as a message to Kevin earlier. Over the course of the season, he's got a 3.8 KDA, which is pretty solid for a player over the course of a season. Against DFM specifically, he has a KDA of 0.78.
Right, he just does.
Yeah, but he doesn't do well, right? Going up against the best team or not, you shouldn't be going 0-7-1.
That's true.
So it's Baby seems to fall apart because his lanes aren't strong enough to always get him priority, and then Steel just is way better at establishing vision for his side lanes in particular than Baby is. And so when he's not able to get solo advantages up against his lane opponent, he tends to kind of fall apart later in the game because he doesn't have the gold that he needs, right? He's one of those early game players where if he's even at 15 minutes, he's actually
Yeah. I
He has
agree.
very good pathing. Steel. I mean, that's one thing that I watch specifically when I watch Detonation is the early game pathing by Steel. He he knows what his win conditions are and he plays around it. You'll see him. The enemy team has a very strong 2v2. They're gonna look to get an early kill on Detonation's bot lane. Steel will skip buffs to make sure that he has provided vision for the bot lane so that they don't die. It's very interesting watching him play because he's able to neutralize the enemy team's jungler and keep his lane safe while they scale into the mid game, which is, Detonation's strength.
Yeah. One other big point, like we talked a little bit about how Achamomo's champion pool was kind of limiting to the rest of his team. There's a pretty glaring hole in Baby's champion pool in that he doesn't play Sejuani. He's played it twice over the course of the season, has gone 1-on-1 on it, but it hasn't been banned against him like it has against almost every other jungler in almost every other league. And it's one of Steel's kind of signature champions over the course of this split. And so just giving a free ban away, right? If you're forced to ban it every single game, DFM just kind of has a free leg up in this series with a champion that is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at the stats right now, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a
Baby
pretty
played it
big
twice.
issue. Yeah, I see.
Still has his Trundle, which is, even if he did play the Sejuani, he still has the ability to deal with it. And that nation has dealt with the Sejuani against other teams with Steel's Trundle.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel like the biggest the highest chance of like a champion pool issue, I feel like is still Seros. I feel like the Crest Gaming and the Nation game really showcased that, where they banned, Ziggs, Karma, and Heimerdinger, and he picks Nico mid. So I feel like that might be a way to win. I'd be very curious if V3 would be willing to try that. But that means you give everyone else gets like power picks. And if it were up to me, I might try one game to see if that might be a win condition. But if I'll try game one. If it doesn't work game one, and like Evie and Utapon are just such a big threat that I can't let them have like whatever they want, then I might just scrap that idea. But it'd be interesting to see if that's something that they do.
I'm having a hard time trying to read Detonation Focus Me and whether or not they seem to have small champion pools this split, or if they just aren't showing us anything that they're working. Right? Evie's played 8 games of Gnar. Right? And Gnar is an okay champion, just kind of in general over the course of the split, but he's just willing to blind pick. He'll play it into anybody, and then he played like 5 games of Tom Kench top. Right? He's not showing us any of his champion pool. And if he has one, right? The question is, can he actually play these other champions? We just haven't seen it, but we know he can play a lot of this stuff from previous seasons, and I have to imagine he still can. But you look at other players as well. Utapon has been playing like 3 champions over the course of the split. It's the Ezreal, Zaya, and I think it was a little bit of Sivir early on, but he's not playing a whole lot because he's not getting pushed. Saros is playing a lot of Heimerdinger, Azir, Karma, again, things we all know he can already play. So I don't know anything about Detonation Focus Me's champion pool this time around. So it might, like you said, it might be a win condition, but I feel like DFM just haven't been pushed at all throughout the entire split.
If it works, then they'll just keep picking it. I don't know if that is a super viable strategy long term for Detonation because I would consider them a very international caliber team. They represent LJL a lot historically, and getting stage time on a bunch of different champions is really valuable. Just playing the same Gnar, Tom Kench, Heimerdinger, Karma over and over again. It's not the same experience as practicing champions and scrims. I wish that they would pull it out, pull out more of different picks. I understand why maybe they wouldn't, but
Do you think they are hiding picks?
I don't think so.
You
They
don't
might
think so?
have. They might have like they might have bigger champion pools, like 4 or 5 champions. But if you're not practicing them consistently on stage, are they going to be rank 1 LJL caliber? Going into an international event, are they going to be at the same caliber as other teams? If they do in this final. So it's a concern, but you know.
Mhm.
My rebuttal to that is maybe they are trying new picks, but it's not working. I feel like that's a bigger concern.
Yeah, that would be a big
Because, like,
concern.
they tried out Ramen, right? And then after, like,
Yeah.
3 games, they scrapped that idea. They're like, it doesn't work. We're just throwing Ramen under the bus again. And we're going to just put in Seros. And I feel like Dead Nation has a problem with they only have one playstyle. It's let Seros play a control mage mid, whatever that may be, Karma, Heimerdinger, Lulu, or like even like Vel'Koz. He can play that pretty
Nico?
well. Yeah, or I guess Nico, like whatever that may be, like he has a specific style, and Dead Nation plays around that style. But with Ramune mid, he requires help. He requires resources. With Seros mid, you don't help Seros. If you help Seros, you're wasting your time. You let Steel help Yutapon or Evi, depending on where the map is. And, Seros can also help those champions in the side lanes too, because he's just shoving waves and constantly. He can always outpush the enemy. Like, if you pick Ziggs, there's no way Akali is going to outpush Ziggs. So he's able to clear waves and roam and help out. But it's like Ramune, he picks stuff like Aurelia, like Silas, maybe even Akali. Like, he doesn't play recently, so I don't know if he can play that, but it's like, he plays a different complete style. And Steel does not know how to adapt to that style. The other members doesn't seem to know how to adapt to that style. And the coach doesn't seem to know how to coach them into playing a different style. So that's my biggest concern, is that they have one style, the other teams in LGL can't beat it. But, international teams are able to beat it. That's why they, like, struggle internationally. But, yeah, I feel like they are trying stuff. They are scrimming with different picks, but they're not successful on it. So they just don't bring it out on stage. And I feel like that's a bigger concern. Sure, they'll probably win LGL. They'll probably win 3-0, 3-1. And then they'll probably either get smashed or get smashed in the best of 5 that they have to play.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to see. That Nation Focus to me has, again, just like not had serious competition this year, in ways that I was hoping Crest Gaming in particular was going to be bringing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's.
I feel like that's
going
the
going
perfect time. I'm
yeah.
sorry. That's the
Going into
perfect
the
time
finals.
to be pulling out.
Yeah. You're in a spot where it's like DFM is probably almost exactly as good relative to the international teams this year as they were last year. Right? Like they haven't done anything new. They haven't done anything different. Or even if you just look at the spring split where they ended up going to MSI almost immediately afterwards. Like they haven't grown as a team in any meaningful way. But I also agree. I think they're still going to win 3-1. If anybody's just tuning in again, like if you're betting against DFM in this region, yeah, you should probably actually go watch some of the games because just no team has been close to them whatsoever.
Crest Gaming was my hope.
I guess CGA.
I thought
I
Crest
was
Gaming was
hoping
going to
for
win
Crest.
3-1 against V3,
Yeah.
but they lost. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have faith in V3. I just don't feel like they have that. Like, it's just like when I watch some of the regular season games, I feel like they're just too inconsistent. Like, they have moments where they win, they have moments where they lose. Whereas Dead Nation, until someone figures out how to beat that one play style, I feel like they're gonna win. Maybe if V3 pulls out something amazing game 1 and they just smash Dead Nation, then I might have faith. But until I see game 1, I'm still leaning towards heavily Dead Nation 3-0.
Well,
So if you were to give me like a percentage on like how likely you think it is that DFM wins the series, what would you guess?
80? 70?
yeah, I would say 80.
That seems low to me. I feel like that's close to what I would expect on a per game basis.
Well, my reasoning for giving them 80 is they've only really showed that one play style. And let's say V3 pulls together a really good strategy against that play style. If Detonation can't ban it out and pick bans, or if they have enough champions to continue playing the counter to Detonation style, then, you know, there's still that 20% chance that they just pop off.
Yeah.
And I would say it's a pretty big chance, given that we haven't seen a lot of diversity in Detonation's play. It's just it works and they do it. And so I don't. You can't be too confident with a team that plays one way. You see, like, TSM, old TSM, when they're always number one in NA playing the same style, but they go to Worlds and playing against teams that know how to counter that style. It's like they fall apart. Now, can V3 come up with the counter to Detonation style? I don't know, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they have so many VODs to look through, and if they need to prepare for just one team in Detonation, well, you've had a lot of time. So now's the time, so go for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't put money on the fact that V3 win. Like, this is 80% Detonation wins, right? Like, the 20% chances V3 wins like one game. I still think Detonation are the heavy favorites. There's no reason right now to suspect that Detonation will lose. I'm just saying that, like, there's 2 weeks. Like, I don't think V3 has bad players in any means. I don't think the coaching staff, I don't know anything about the coaching staff, but, I don't think the coaching staff is, like, garbage. Like, maybe with 5 players and 2 coaches, they're able to come up with, like, a strategy or a plan. And it just can't be like, oh, we'll just ban these champions. It has to be like, okay, we will ban these champions, we will pick this kind of style, we will do this sort of thing, and with that, we could win the game. This will counter, like, so that way if, like, you ban, like, let's say, Heimerdinger, Ziggs, and, like, Karma, and you have this strategy, they just pull out Lulu, right? Like, they can still pull out different champions, and, like, you have to be able to counter that idea, that core of Detonation where they, just clear wave mid. They give youth opponent a strong champion. They give Evie a good team fighting champion. They give, like, Steel, like, a good, like, roaming jungle like Sejuani or like Gragas or something like that. Something that can apply pressure and, like, cover lanes. Like, if they can find a way to beat that specific style, then V3 has a chance of winning.
Yeah, just a fun tidbit. Steel has not played Gragas a single time this split.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, really?
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
0 games.
Oh,
I was thinking about that
Semifinal?
too. I mean, it's
You're
not
right.
their top 5 most banned against. It's actually one of their most common bans, which is kind
Okay.
of surprising
Most
because I feel like
banned
Steel
by
used to play a lot of Gragas.
Yeah.
But
Wait,
I'll
what?
have
like
to go
it's-
back and look.
I feel like it suits his play style as well. That's surprising to me.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't expect that.
He played it once in spring. Wow, that's actually really weird. I could have thought of him as like a Gragas player.
Yeah, I
It's
thought
just
of him
like
as
that
a
style.
Gragas. Yeah, I
Played
thought
it
of him
once
as like
last
a.
summer.
Yeah, in his career, he's only played it 4 times.
Dang.
Okay,
That's
his
actually
most
not-
played
that's
champion is
nothing about that.
Nocturne. That's interesting. Okay, wow.
Yeah, I mean there was a split where everybody was playing Nocturne. I
Yeah.
remember that. The idea of him is just really good
Okay,
at punishing
that's weird.
other Japanese teams for being out of position on. Like that's I think their biggest, other than the fact that they have the like top 2 or top 3 players in every single position. They're just really good at playing the map in ways that the rest of Japan is not.
That was a very I know in the semifinals the macro play, and in some of that nation's games even the macro play, specifically lane assignments revolving around objectives, was I would say it wasn't optimal. It wasn't ideal. I don't know what they try to get out of some of their lane assignments, specifically objectives, like to say you put Evie in a side lane to pressure no tower with dragons down. You just have like hard pressure in a side lane when you could put him in the opposite lane and actually take towers and pressure the map and get vision control. It's sometimes I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish other than stall out the game, and that's one worrying thing for me. Maybe not in the finals, but if they do win the finals, go to international play, it might be a major issue. One thing with the Crest Gaming versus the V3 semifinals, you can say V3 they didn't look clean. They didn't look very clean. They looked reactive. But I don't think Crest was playing like how they played the entire season. So maybe V3 was prepared for like a Crest that was looking very strong, very Luna carry, art carry, like team fight based. But then they didn't end up playing against that Crest, and the games got kind of messy. They still have like a detonation that's played very consistently the same way, like for the entire split. Maybe they're more prepared. Maybe they can be more prepared against a consistent detonation than against the Crest that kind of, I would say they kind of fell apart in that semifinals.
All right. Well, just to sum up for everyone one more time, I think, is anybody think that the most likely result is something other than detonation focus me 3-1 over V3?
3-0?
Do you think it's more likely 3-0 than 3-1?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
My philosophy is that, like, you should always try to look at each game isolated and then try to see, like, what's the chances overall that V3 can win a game. And I feel like as the games go on, V3's chances of winning get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, like, sure, there's a world that V3 does win a game, but what is the chances of that is more likely than the fact that Detonation just smashes them 3-0? I feel like Detonation will just smash them 3-0 more than the fact that V3 should win a game. I feel like if they win a game, that's pretty impressive. If they win like 2 games, I'd be like, whoa, that's actually a really good season. If they win the series, I'd just like bow down towards their new overlords.
I think we'd all be going nuts.
Yeah.
If he actually wins the series. But Maria, do you think 3-0 is also more likely?
I'd say 45% chance 3-0, 45% chance 3-1, 9% chance 3-2, 1% chance 3-0. So, or sorry, 3.
The 2-3 the other way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
3-0 for V3 is a 1% chance.
Yeah.
I could agree with that.
3-0 for V3 is
Yeah.
lower than that. I don't think they will 3-0 Detonation at like.
But I don't think that's reasonable. I just want to. The only reason why I give V3 a game is just the way that Baby plays. You know, where it is kind of like the Wyvern, where it is very early game focused and he can snowball games out of control. I think this is a team where if they do get a really good early game off, then they are good enough to snowball it through. And I think, you know, there's a reasonable chance that Baby could do that at least once.
Yeah, I would agree. He's feast or famine. And when we say the detonation spikes in mid game, late game team fights, V3's only option is really to snowball a lead. If they can do it once, that's good enough for me, honestly. I'll give him a 3-1 because I'm a very optimistic soul.
Fair enough. Any other final thoughts on upcoming finals? Or Kevin, I suppose, are you going?
I don't think so. I don't know if I want to go. Like I haven't really decided yet. I'm definitely not going alone. So if someone says like, "Hey, let's go," which I don't know why someone would say that, but by some chance someone says, "Hey, I want to watch the LJL finals," then I'll go along. But I don't think I'm probably gonna watch at home and just be comfortable, or watch with friends at home, so we could just like talk and laugh and just joke around. Because I'm not as hyped as I was for the semifinals.
Yeah.
Fair.
I live in Vegas, so I can't go.
Yeah, I had to think about that one. Also, I know there's probably at least one person who will end up watching this. I'm probably not going to be able to put on an English broadcast because I think I'm probably going to be out of town, so I won't be able to stay up late enough to do that. So
Oh, okay.
I'll try and get a rebroadcast at some point, but yeah, don't hold your breath on actually seeing that live in English.
Oh.
That sucks. It's always nice to have like an English broadcast for like special finals and stuff like that. Like, people used to like English broadcast for like the Taiwanese finals or like the like all these like minor regions that like nobody really cares about. But it's always nice to get like someone that quote unquote watches the region. Like I don't know if they actually did watch like all of Vietnam, but they say they do. So it's like nice to hear their story, like explain the players in like a language I can understand, because I can't understand any other language as English and Japanese.
For me, it's really nice watching these broadcasts because you're so used to. The only thing you generally hear about these regions is what like the major region casters have to say when they actually show up at Worlds, and then if you're paying attention, you very clearly know that those are not actually the important stories from those regions. Like I feel like every year we hear someone from Europe or NA talk about how Saros is the faker of Japan, and everybody who actually like watches Japan is like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Well, not Saros fanboys. They're like, "Yeah, I agree. He is the faker of Japan. I get him."
Youth opponents are probably the faker of Japan.
Well, that's what I always said, but then I got flamed.
He's a very strong player, and I really like the bot lane of Detonation. I think that would be the focus, or Evie even. I think Evie is a very huge, high impact player, and he's been an iconic LJL player for so.
Yeah, I mean, Saros is not bad by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he's not bad.
The way he plays and the way that Faker plays are just like
very different.
So different.
He's the great neutralizer of mid lane. He can take he can take, very strong mid laners and just turn it into a farm lane. And that's really good talent to have, especially for a team that plays like Detonation does. So, but Faker doesn't do that. So it's kind of an old narrative.
Well, like I always shit on Saros a little bit harder because everyone praises him so much. But honestly, he's like 4th or 5th, maybe 3rd in the LGL in terms of like individual strength. But like the fact that you compare him
across all mid laners or all players,
all mid laners.
Okay.
Like somewhere in there, like 4th or 5th, I would say, like middle of the pack. Why? Where would you place him?
In mid laners?
Yeah. I went Dasher, Luna, Ace, and then Saros.
I don't think I'd put Ace above Saros.
I'd say 3.
Like, I mean, if you look at their head-to-head record in particular, Saros has been up by a level at 15 minutes both times that they've played this.
I mean, he also plays specific champions. I mean, this is a topic we can.
I mean, he was up by like almost 2,000 experience and was up in CS as well. So I think, just head to head, maybe it's just a bad stylistic matchup for Ace, but to put Ace above Saros, I think is surprising. I can agree with Dasher and Luna being, pretty reasonably above Saros, but
maybe it's just like a stylistic choice. I also like those kinds of players that try to win the game, so just AFK in the mid lane. Like that's why I don't really like that kind of style from Saros. It's just like it's not fun.
See, this is why Dasher is the best player in the LJL.
Dasher's insane. I really like watching Dasher play. There's not a lot of mid laners that you could take and put in Detonation that will accomplish the same task that Saros does. So you take Ace and put him in Detonation, will they be as dominant as they are?
Well, they tried that with Ramune.
So. Yeah,
and look how that turned out.
I think most people would say that Ramune is probably the second best domestic mid laner, but it's really hard.
Who's
we
first?
Haven't seen him in a bit. I mean, Saros.
we don't have that much time to get into an argument.
More than Saros, but
no, it's not even that. It's like I was gonna say Roki was better domestic mid laner than Saros historically. If you just discount 2019, Roki was always better than Saros until recently.
That's a bold claim.
You can't just be like Saros is best because he wins. So I understand where Kevin's coming from. He could say like Saros is the best mid laner for Detonation stylistically, but that doesn't mean he's the best, individual mechanical player. And you can't really fault people like Roki and
Roki was smashing the LGL. Then he got banned and had to go to the Challenger Series, where he was exiled onto Scars and Burning Core and all those horrible teams. Then he's like on prison, where they got rid of all their best players like Yutori Moashi, and they stuck him with Yuhi, and he just plays Lulu mid. He's a broken man, but he was once a great mid laner. I salute you, Roki, if you're watching. I still think you're good.
Alright, that's going into...
I'm still waiting for 2021 or whenever the fuck Burning Core comes online. I don't know. Like, I don't mind what Burning Core is doing, but it's like, Roki was such a good mid laner. He would like smash lane. He smashed Seros. That's the only reason why like Rampage was even relevant back then. The first time they won was because Roki was such a good mid laner. And then
Alright, I'll have to go back.
Okay, there's a long history with that, but... I think Roki still can't. There's still some moments in Burning Core, but like when you pick him Lulu, when you draft like all these weird things, when you give him like 3 rookies, it's like I don't know if he even has the motivation to like win anymore. Maybe it's just like, yeah, I'll just take a paycheck, I'll just cruise. What do you want me to play, Lulu mid? Sure, why not? I think I played it once in solo queue. Yeah, fuck it. Just give me whatever. I mean, he could have been like, no, I don't want to play Lulu, and then its paycheck comes in, he's like, okay, fine. Just one game. Only one.
Pantheon. Give me Pantheon.
I demand Pantheon. What do you mean my support can't play Rakan?
No.
Sorry, I just had to go there. Like, as a support main, it's just like, it's easier for me to shit on supports. Like, when people talk about jungle pathing and all that stuff, I don't understand. I guess it looks good. But when you talk about supports, I'm like, oh, this is my forte. Who can I make fun of? And right now it's Achamomo. Sorry.
All right, I'll come back. I'll post it on Twitter at some point after I've done like a deeper dive. I'll stake the claim that Aceros is the best domestic mid laner in Japan. I'll come up with something on Twitter. You'll see. You'll see.
I'll go back. I'll do my research. Well, we can make an episode. We could do that actually. That'd be interesting. Who was overall a better mid laner, Roki or Seros?
I think I would love to watch you guys discuss the best domestic talent in Japan in all roles. That would be a very cool episode to watch.
Well, jungle would be done.
I mean, your Evi Paz. We'll get back to jungle, but mid is like Seros, Roki, and then maybe Roman is not in that conversation.
He could be.
I don't think. He's in the conversation. You have Yutapone and Yutori Mayashi, and then who's a good domestic support? Like Dinton was good for a while, NT was good for a while.
Kazu?
Oh, Kazu, yeah, I forgot that he actually played. He was good for a while.
There's one really good AD carry that nobody really talks about, and that's Hikari. He played on like Dead Nation like 2015 for like one split, then he retired, but he was really good.
Yeah, I have not heard that name in a long time.
Okay, this is a name I threw out there, but yeah, that'd be interesting.
Is Chamacha the best domestic jungler in Japan?
I mean, you'd have to go way back.
Yeah,
and then
they've been all Koreans for like 3 years.
Something like that. Yeah, 2-3 years. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling. I'm struggling to think of jungler names, but okay, I think we're getting to the end point of the video.
Sorry. Yeah, we're just kind of ranting.
Yeah, we're just rambling.
Twitch chat.
We're getting distracted.
All right.
Like,
actual question though, who do you think is the best player to have ever played in the LJL?
That's easy. I got my answer already. I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah, I know your answer. Definitely.
Is it Roki?
What?
Not the. Okay.
Wait,
what's your answer?
Wait, best player of all time in Japan?
Yeah, best player who has ever played in LJL.
Yeah, Yutapone. By far, it's not even close.
Really, including imports?
Oh, imports as well?
Yeah, anybody who has ever played in LJL.
Fuck. No, I'd still probably have to give it to Yutapone because, like, Dasher hasn't really proven anything like internationally.
Just saying, blank one worlds.
Okay. Okay, that's cheating. That's cheating. Okay, I forgot Blank was even in the LGL right now. I was like, oh yeah, Blank is in the LGL. And then I remembered what his team did, and then I got depressed, and I just don't want to talk about Blank anymore. Okay,
That's actually interesting. I'd have to think about that one more because Blake has just looked so underwhelming since he came to Japan.
yeah. But if you're
I
talking
have
about the
another
history, then
duo on
Blank
Twitter.
has accomplished way more than than all the Japanese
True,
players
true.
combined. So it's
Very
like,
true.
So I guess I'm cheating by picking
yeah.
Blank.
I thought you were
Yeah.
talking
And
about
Blank
just
pick-
Japanese players, because then I would say Yutapon is hands down by far the best.
Yeah, I mean, if it's domestic, I think it's definitely Utapon.
And like, if we're discounting
Dasher
Blank,
is just so impressive that even with the USG that he's on right now, he's still solo carrying games against DFF. Right, I
Yeah.
can't think of a single other player in Japanese history that could do that. Like even when like Gongo was around, the rest of USG was fairly strong, and I think he's been sitting on the bench of King Zone.
no,
KT.
KT. I think he's on the
Yeah.
bench. I don't know if he got fired.
Yeah,
He's not
I don't-
playing
I don't
though.
know. He played a couple games over the course of the series before giving up his spot to
So I mean, summer season's all been praised. So I don't know if he's still there.
yeah.
And he
But
split
Gongo
time.
couldn't do it. Remind couldn't do it. Blank clearly can't do it.
Well, I want to give a special shout out to Dara if we're gonna talk about imports.
Okay, yeah.
I think Dara had an amazing impact, but obviously, like, you know, when he was playing, there's only like 2 imports, and now it's like a really different story where there's like every team has imports, 2 imports. So, like, if you'd have to take that into consideration, but I feel like
Sure.
at the time Dara has like he changed the LGL because he was like one of the first imports to come in. He learned the language. He was able to like work well with like Japanese players. He's like respected as a shot caller. So I feel like you could throw Dara's name up there. I don't think I wouldn't vote for that. I still probably have to give it to Dasher or Yutapon. Because Yutapon has international experience and Dasher doesn't. That's where
Doesn't yet.
when did Dasher come into the LJL?
This
He's
year,
just played 2
2019.
splits.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can say that he's, you know, he is a very impressive player, really mechanically gifted, and like a hard carry for USG. But if we're talking just in terms of Japan specifically, I think Yutapon has just been really
Yeah, he's a
good for a
rock.
very long time. So
I mean, he even played
Yeah.
top lane internationally and did really well.
yeah, I want to see
This is just
Dasher.
mostly just like my love letter to Dasher. So I'm going to be very, very sad when he ends up leaving LJL.
I didn't watch him play before he came to the LGL. He was on some like challenger Korean team, so I don't
Is that-
know.
The
They got
Sharks.
Something like that. I believe so. Just going off
Yeah.
memory, I think it was
Yeah.
ES Sharks.
Yeah, Sharks.
But yeah, like it's really hard to like obviously Dasher's like really good, but it's like you're only watching him in the context of one league. Because I doubt anyone watched Challenger Korea just to see what Dasher did back then. I didn't care enough. So I'm pretty sure no one else
so
did.
confusing.
What?
I'm just looking at Dasher's wiki page. He used to play with a player named Doran, who was playing for the ES
Griffin.
Sharks as a support, but it's a different Doran
Oh, really?
in the same region. Yeah. The guy that Dasher played with now goes by Kuri, and the Doran that plays for Griffin is just an entirely different person.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, like 15 years from now, when everybody's playing and everybody's just like trying to come up with their unique name, it's like, wait, which faker was it? Was it the 2019 faker or the 2030 faker?
There's gonna
Yeah.
be so many variations of fakers. Even when Miso Phoenix came to NA, he was under the tag Trickster because it's like faker, but you know, similar meaning. You know, there's gonna be a lot of names like that.
Yeah.
No.
I just
This is
just
gonna be confusing.
another side note. We're just totally rambling at this
Yeah.
point. So if
Let's
people
wrap
wanna
it
watch,
up,
you
I
know,
guess.
Yeah.
Any
the one
final
thing that's just
thoughts?
interesting to me.
Yeah, let's go
Isn't
with final
faker
thought.
roughly equivalent to like? Isn't the word faker, its usage in Japan and Korea, basically equivalent to how Americans use the word fraud?
Fraud?
Well,
Yeah.
faker.
Like to call someone a fraud, to call someone a faker.
yeah, I would say
Yeah,
so.
it's a bad thing.
It's
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like a fake person, right? Like con man.
I mean, fraud is usually like pretending to be something you're not and then getting called out for it.
I think
Like,
that's
you-
what
you
makes
said
it
you-
such a cool name, though.
Yeah. Well, he's good, so it
It's
makes
so
it cool.
weird.
Faker.
Yeah. I mean, Americans just use this like Faker is just like such a good thing because nobody else uses it in any other context.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard somebody say Faker realistically outside of League of Legends. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
we got super track.
Okay.
I don't have any more closing thoughts. Thank you for listening to me ramble for the past
Okay.
8 minutes.
Maria, thanks for being on the show. Was it as
Thank
bad
you,
as you
guys.
thought it'd be?
That was very fun.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I really love to talk about the LJL because it's something that I've been following since last year when I started playing in Japan. And like I've gotten even more into watching LJL and the players and even scouting grounds and the upcoming talent in Japan, which I think you guys should do a show about if you ever have the time. Because I mean, I'm Grandmaster in Japan and I've played with a lot of the players I saw at scouting grounds. That's the future of the LJL, right? So
Yeah.
Anything you want to shout out? Your Twitter? I guess your Twitter's written down below. Oh, you can watch her on Twitch.
Tsukuyomi.
I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's probably just gonna.
Aw.
It's
Play
really
us, that's
complicated
Yeah.
situation, but we'll
That's-
talk about it later. Yeah, Josh, anything you want to shout out? Oh, sorry. Wait,
No.
Maria, were you not finished?
Oh no, I just
Oh,
want to say
okay.
I'm a blank fangirl, and I really hope that he succeeds in whatever he does in the future. So
Me
I
too.
wanted to say that.
I agree.
Nice.
All right, Josh, anything you want to say before you head out?
Nah. Dasher, please don't leave. That's about it, I think.
Where's your love letter, Kevin? Where's your love letter? Pick a player. Give him a
Yuthapon?
love letter.
I'm single. I'm available. If you want to make this work, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm not very I don't demand that much. You just go out there, smash some foreign players at Worlds, come back to Japan, smash the domestic players too. I'll be by your side. I remember you 2014, 2015 when they made you play useless top lane champions, and I supported you. I was there for you. When people said,
Maokai.
yeah, Maokai, all these garbage picks, and then that org asked you to go, our AD carry is terrible. I don't want to name names, but we want you to play AD carry. And you said yes. I will say yes too. You want me to be your support? Actually, you don't want me to do that, but I will watch you play with other supports. I'm there for you, Yuthapon. Contact me. My DMs are open.
What a wonderful closing thoughts.
Okay.
Honestly.
This has gone on for too long. It's too ridiculous. Okay, we're done. Okay, bye everyone. Thanks for watching.